All right, everybody, thanks so much. The returning legend back on the program, my Italian paisano, the Italian stallion over in Gainesville. And he's originally a Rhode Islander, as you know, if you watched the interview in the past. Nick Zimmerman, head coach of the Florida Gators women's soccer team on X. Shoot him a follow, UFN Zimmerman on X. Again, shoot him that follow. And then on Instagram, it's Nick Zimmerman 23. Very easy to, find. Shoot him a follow on both places. Nick, always good to talk to you. First question, first Father's Day with the new Bambino. How was it?
Oh, it was great. It was unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, I had to go to Philly to recruit. So I actually left on Saturday, got back late Sunday night. So my first Father's Day was actually working on the road. But we did end up getting that commit. So, the little one understood, I think, when it all comes down to it.
Yeah, and she's a beauty, and we do see her on social media. You put up a lot of pictures with you and your wife, so that's great. And so happy you guys are all doing well. I want to kind of grasp on this because when we first spoke a couple months back, it wasn't spring season yet, but spring season was about to tap off. So I want to look back into the spring season. Now, you did play the Pride, Sporting Jacks, Tampa Bay Sun. What were the biggest lessons that you learned as far as were you just implementing possession? Was it high press? What was
Yeah.
going on? Good.
Yeah, I mean, I think when obviously when we spoke last, it was trying to understand, two groups and how we were going to integrate together, right?
Mhm.
How we were going to connect as a group. I think it's really, really important that, the spring was about laying our identity and our foundation. What are our standards and our non-negotiables, and then really teaching it. Every coach has a unique style. Every coaching style is different, and so, our biggest two takeaways were one, we wanted to have a clear identity, which we do have. And then the other was, integrating, a team that was here before and then players that joined, in January. So it was meshing the two together. And I think that's what we were most proud of leaving the spring season, was seeing a group that truly came together, that was celebrating each other's success, that was bought into something that was bigger than them.
How do you feel like it played out? You're mixing pro teams with a few regular college teams, and obviously you're preparing the ladies for the mental and physicality of that SEC regular season.
Yeah, I mean, when we took the job, we didn't have any spring games already set up,
Mhm.
so it was somewhat of a blank canvas, in terms of what do we feel we need as a group. What games are going to present certain challenges, and it was a huge credit to the pro teams that were willing to, play us, which is nice because all of them were unique in its own way. Orlando was a little bit younger, right? There was more of their academy players and some of the rookies. Tampa Bay Sun was more of, the players that hadn't got tons of minutes. And then Sporting Jacks, we played three different segments and we were able to play their top team in that first segment. So, all three were different challenges at different parts of the spring for us. And then, playing college teams as well is always nice to kind of understand where you're at, just from a age to age type situation, but also, more of what you're going to see in the college game.
Again, Nick Zimmerman, the head coach of your Florida Gators women's soccer team. Check him out again on X. It's UFN Zimmerman on X, and then Nick Zimmerman 23 on Instagram. Shoot a follow on both platforms as far as that goes. Continuing on into our conversation today, were there a lot of specific players that maybe were with you at Mississippi State, or maybe they were already here at Florida, that you noticed were really making leaps and bounds and strides and emerging as the leaders throughout that spring season?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it, right, and we had a relationship with Mississippi State players because we had coached them, we had gone through the recruiting process. So you're always going to have different relationships at different times. I think the big thing is when we came in, we were very clear that we want to develop those relationships with the players that were here, and
Sure.
understanding that we're going to invest and we're going to be curious and we want to develop these transformational relationships. And so that was something that we put out on day one, and the girls, the group as a whole, did an incredible job of really, really being open minded, and willing to be coached and also be intentional in everyday communication. So it was, again, there were so many players at different moments of the spring that came out of their shell that
Mhm.
really, really embraced the situation and were really, really excited come the end of spring.
How did the girls get along? We didn't talk about this in our last interview as far as that goes. Was there a little bit of tension because, a lot of women followed you from Mississippi State over to Florida, which again, as I said in the last interview, was pretty incredible. You don't see coaches in any sport bring that many players as you did, and then more came afterwards. Was there any tension there, or did everybody kind of mesh as, the days, the weeks, and the months rolled on?
Yeah, I mean, I think literally on the first meeting, I think we literally addressed the elephant in the room. We
Right.
went around and said, okay, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? And no one said Mississippi State, no one said the University of Florida. And so it was, again, understanding that we want to have these relationships with you, and we understand that we're going to have different relationships of where we're at. And I think in that moment, it was a big deep breath, walls started to come down, and then being intentional with how we communicated and how we really went about developing that that moment in those relationships. So I think again at the end of the day it was, we're not going to sit there in day one and go, hey, we're a kumbaya, we're a family. Like, we understood what some of the challenges were, and we just leaned into it. We're always going to be honest, we're always going to be fair, we're going to be consistent, but we also, at the end of the day, we do want to develop relationships with every player, and that's what the onus was from the staff to the players.
You've been running around all off season like a chicken with your head cut off, whether you've been with the Bambino, whether you've been in Mississippi, running around the United States recruiting. I see it on Instagram and on X. And a lot of your players have really been running around as well, playing in different events or summer leagues, whatever it may be. And one of the Gators that's really been doing big things in the offseason, I hope I don't botch her name. We're going to learn the name to make sure that I don't botch it. If I botch it again, is Ada Simeons. In May, she went to the U.S. With the USA under 19 team to Germany. Give the fans an update on her because she's been really kicking ass and taking no prisoners.
Yeah, I mean, Adia
Thank you.
Simmons. Yeah, so that
We'll
way.
get it next time, I promise.
But yeah, listen, I mean, we got the gist of it. So, when you're wearing a t-shirt like that, you can get away with murder. So, but yeah, I mean, Adi has been someone that continues to grow, but every single day, not just on the field, but off the field. As a leader, as someone that has taken responsibility to help drive the group. Had a really good camp in Germany, came back, actually just got called into the 20s that's going on, I think, right now. But had a little bit of a knock, wanted some rest. We spoke to the national team; they understood. So she's been doing really, really well, and obviously we're excited for her, along with many others, as we come back and get going in 2 weeks.
I'll tell you what, like I said in the last question, and we were speaking about, you really been running around. You and the rest of the team have been really on the recruiting trail, picking up 3 transfers in the month of May and June with Bree Fisher, Breon Fisher. I'm sorry. Did I get it right?
Yeah, I call her Bree.
All right,
So,
well,
but
we'll
yeah,
go with Bree,
yeah,
but Breon Fisher from TCU, Montalina Damon from FIU, and Carlota Martins. I got to get better with the pronunciations, but you were really kicking ass. And I remember you talked in an interview with Allie Peak, I believe it was her, talking about trying to get a woman from the Barcelona team, and you got her. And
yeah.
you really came through and got all these players. What are they going to be bringing to the pitch? Because they're really fresh into this Florida Gators program. They've only been with the team for what, 2, 3 months max?
Yeah, I mean, so Monaline Diamond was at FIU, so she's just got here. Bree Fisher, same. And then Carlotta was, someone that was with us at Mississippi State originally.
Okay.
Coach John has the connection overseas, speaks Spanish, speaks
Yeah.
Portuguese. So he really took the lead in that. He just went to Spain this spring, along with Japan. We have another young lady, Yori, who has been with the Japanese Federation. So those players they're all right now coming in. So we didn't even have them in the spring season.
I look at Penske and Florida State, and it feels like you're kind of modeling your program like what he did in previous with Kokorian did before him is bringing a lot of these international players onto the pitch. And obviously, we've seen the results at Florida State, and it seems like you're bringing that from Mississippi here to Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look back at Coach Krikorian. I mean, what he did such a great job of is his network was so big that he, coaching the U23s, he knew a lot of national team coaches and national teams across the world. And so he was originally starting taking the youth and then was full national team players. And so he had a very good blend of, top players here domestically, but then overseas as well. So, for us, it's about finding the right players that fit our playing styles, not necessarily just going out and getting someone from a country to say we're recruiting internationally. It's do they fit the playing style, what our values are. There's a lot that goes into it. And so, we feel like we found a couple markets that we're really excited to continue to develop those relationships and lean into.
Would you say a lot of the players that you recruit, Nick, it's about loyalty? They came with you from Mississippi State to Florida State. A lot of the people that worked with you at Mississippi State, you brought to Florida. I said Florida State. I correct me from. Hey, listen, I have some allergic reaction. I don't know if anybody could see it in my eyes, so I'm battling here. But, but anyways, we'll move on. So, do you feel like you'd rather have a player that is more loyal to you, loyal to the program, loyal to winning, than having some great player that honestly they're just selfish and worried about getting NIL money and worried about themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, the big thing is when these players left at Mississippi State, like they went into the transfer portal. Like a lot of them were all being recruited from Florida State, Vandy, South Carolina, Kentucky. Like, when I left, I said, goodbye to them on Thursday and didn't speak
Right.
to them until they were in the portal, right? So there was no, oh, well, we're going to really do this. It was like we had to go and almost recruit them again against some of the top programs in the country. And so, I think it says a lot about them, who they are. It says a lot about the staff that we had. I mean,
Right.
you know, when you try and lead a program and players and an organization, you always want to do things the right way. Like I try every day to lead by example. I make mistakes every day, but I always try and
Mhm.
put the players and coaches in a spot where they can thrive and they love what they do. And when you have that alignment, I think it's rare that people don't often follow. Like when you're in the trenches, you want people that always have your back. And Coach Garber obviously had an opportunity to stay at Mississippi State and came here. Coach Vic, Coach Aiden, I knew Coach Carey from ODP, and then the players, obviously taking a chance. So it's humbling for me. It's a beautiful thing. I show gratitude every day for the staff that we have here. I'm beyond blessed, and then obviously the players and the trust that they have in us is something that at the end of the day I'm very very thankful.
Again, Nick Zimmerman, head coach of your Florida Gators women's soccer team. Follow him on X at UFN Zimmerman and also Nick Zimmerman 23 on Instagram. As we kind of wind down the interview and go a little bit into the preseason now, because the season starts on the 5th with that first exhibition against Miami. What are your top priorities with the preseason coming up in days, pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, with the new transition period, right, you got an additional 2 weeks. So everyone's in the same boat of trying to how to navigate that, right? It's awesome that we have access to them, but if you push too hard too early, you could crush them, right? So it's finding
Yeah.
that balance. And then as we get through preseason, we've got 9 new kids, right? 9 new players into our group, which is a third of the team. So, it's getting them acclimated right away. It's understanding where they best fit. And then ultimately continuing to reinforce the things that we've worked on in spring. Miami is coached by, Coach Masur, who's a great coach, really smart, wants the ball. So that's going to present some challenges. And then, Coach Dunn's won national championships at the JUCO and NAIA level. So he'll be an international team that will pose challenges as well. So we're excited about the challenges that lie ahead. We have a very, very challenging opening game at UCF away, who's
Yeah.
coming off another great year, right? Coach Sahady's done a great job and Matt staff. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. And then as you build into, the conference, we have arguably the hardest SEC schedule I've ever had in the SEC.
Yeah.
I mean, playing, the Vandy and Arkansas away. You open away at South Carolina. You have to go to Mississippi State, right? Your home games are Tennessee, Texas, Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, right? So, I mean, there's no easy games. They're all challenging. And, with a new group, it's making sure we have, the fundamentals and things in place when, the adversity hits.
So how are you preparing in the preseason? Is it more about fitness to kind of just basically,
Oh, hopefully they're already fit. I mean, we don't have time to just get on the line and run.
yeah.
So, I mean, if they're
So it's
not
more
fit,
about refinement, Nick, of
yeah, I
what
mean, I think
happened in
it's
the spring. Good.
yeah, it's getting sharp and just again reinforcing some of the ideas. I mean, it was a lot that we taught in the spring because it was a completely different playing style,
Mhm.
and we did a lot of film, and so it's understanding the expectations of what we're trying to do, and most importantly, it's our non-negotiables, like our standards. Like we want to be a team that's going to high press, we want to be a team that's going to counter press, we want to have the ball. So at the end of the day, those are the three things that everything revolves around. And counter pressing is at our DNA. If you look at the World Cup, you look at the teams that are having success, how quickly they lose it and they win it back. Those are the teams that are putting more and more pressure on the opponent.
And I'll tell you what, like I said, I've spoke to some of the girls that are coming in as far as recruits to you, and they rave about, their meetings with you and talks with the team and stuff. So, and even just you and I speaking, I tell you, you get me fired up when I listen to interviews that you do with other people. It gets me fired up. I'm thinking that a lot of the players that you have, they'll run through a brick wall for you. They're ready to rock and roll, and it also proves that point, and not to butter you up like butter and bread, but it proves that point because all those girls wouldn't have came over with you to Florida if they didn't think you were such a great coach. They would have just stayed there or went somewhere else where they could, win as well.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I got great staff.
Yeah,
Coach John again has been a huge piece of what we're trying to do. And again, I mean, he could have stayed and been the head coach.
sure.
He was offered it and
Wow.
said, hey, I trust you and what we can do at Florida. And so, again, that takes a lot of ego to say I'm going to pass that opportunity up. So I'm beyond thankful. And then again, the kids the girls are great girls. I mean, I'm blessed every day.
Last question, and I have two quick audience questions. We talk about 2026. Obviously, you've been working your butt off with the rest of the staff, recruiting, getting all the ladies together, and making sure the playing style is in sync. What is the goal for 2026? Is it to make the SEC tournament, the NCAA tournament? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, we say it all the time, progress is winning, right? Like we know the task and the challenge that lies ahead. So it's more about if we can continue to implement what we're doing, we know the results will come. And we know that not only will they come, they'll be sustainable. And that's for us is really the goal, right? I mean, we can sit there and say, like, at the end of the day, everyone's coach should be, I want to win a national championship, right? So like that's always there, right? We don't wake up and go, how can we lose this game? We want to win every game we play, but we
Yeah.
want to do it the right way. And so I think that is the priority for us is it's always performance over results in that way, right? That's what we've said all spring. We beat, North Florida in the last game
Mhm.
of spring, and it was one of the most disappointing performances we had all spring. And that's what we said to the players is, yeah, we won the game. We don't necessarily we care about the performance over the results. Because if the results are everything that's driven us by, then we're going to miss steps along the way. This is about the performance over the results. So the performance is most important because if we have more and more, positive and progressive performances, we're going to be where we want to be at the end of the day.
Going into the last two audience questions, we talk about the overtime rule. Would you rather have the golden goal, or would you rather have it like it is now with the tie after regulation?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it's twofold, right? If you're the better team, you always want to end it, right? Like the more time you have, eventually you're going to win, right? So I think you look at that, but the other side of it is it's also, is it injury prevention where you have less, let's say you have 3 or 4 overtime games, that's an extra game, right? So if it was to be overtime, I would go golden goal. I wouldn't do it where you have to play 2 10-minute halves, regardless if you score. I think that's where it gets wonky. But yeah, I mean, I think it's getting harder and harder now to get into the NCAA tournament. Ties don't carry as much weight. So if you're the better team, more teams are going to want to play
Yeah, I mean,
and
I
to try and
agree
win
with
it.
you. Go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Now, I was gonna say I agree with you 100%. I mean, people want to see a win. They don't want a tie, and ties don't carry as much as you stated. Last question. When you're recruiting a player, do you prefer if the player plays ODP, ECNL, or would you rather be okay with taking a player that was, a great player, but they played just on the high school level, maybe against good talent, but obviously it's not the talent of ODP and ECNL.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, every coach has its own, philosophy or ideas on it. Like for us, we don't care where they play. Like,
Oh, okay.
like for us, it's about do they exhibit the qualities that we look for on the field, but more importantly, off the field. How do they treat their parents? How do they treat their coaches? How do they treat their teammates, right? If they're brother and sisters, when the parents ask questions, are they like rolling their eyes, like stop asking that, that's stupid, right? Like how they treat their peers, their parents is really, really important for us, right? I mean, there's kids that play on really, really good teams and they're ranked in top drawer and all these rankings and they end up, not having a great career. And then there's kids that, you maybe take a chance on that do exceptionally well, right? So there's no rhyme or reason of like, oh, well, if you have this, then you're going to 100% be successful, right? I mean, look at how many NFL quarterbacks go one in the draft
Yeah,
that are
so
two years later they're out, right? But they played at Ohio State or, they played at this school. So, I think it's all down to the individual and the person, how they're motivated, how disciplined they are, what is their why. I think that's for us is the biggest question that we ask is like, what is your why? Do you really love this game? If you love football, if you love to be coached and you love to compete and you're curious, this is the best place for you. If you're not, that's totally fine, but this probably isn't the best place for you. And just being honest with them in that process, and you can tell, if a kid's into it or not, right? I mean, we have a ranking system. What's important to you? X, Y, Z, rank them. And then based off of how they rank them, you can have an idea of how they're motivated and if they're going to work or not, just based off of the experience of what we've done because we're not changing.
yeah.
We'll adapt in how we teach the game and how we maybe have to navigate some things, but who we are and our core values, that won't change. That's what's got us to where we are, and that's how we've been raised.
I guess just to put the exclamation point on that, what I hear from other coaches is that when they're recruiting, they would just rather, and again, it is perspective as you stated, but they would rather have players play, ODP, CNL, the list goes on and on, rather than play both because they're worried about injury. And we are seeing a lot of women's players now get that ACL tier more so than men. I'm not saying men don't get ACL tiers, but I
No,
think it's
you're
more
absolutely right,
prevalent
though.
in
There is
women than
a,
men. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean, there is certainly, I mean, there's a study going around of why
Right.
the female ACL tear is astronomical right now. It's through the roof. And so, yeah, I mean, that's obviously a huge concern
Yeah.
from any coach is, the more that you're playing, the more probable you are of potentially getting injured and all this. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, you've got now kids have technical trainers, they got personal trainers, they got athletic trainers, they got speed trainers, they got their regular, I mean, they got a million trainers. Like grab a ball, find a wall and smash it against it a million times. That's what I did. That's what back in the day before we had all this, like less is more in some regards.
Right.
It just comes down to, who you are and, how you're wired.
Well, Nick, you're old school. They don't make old school much anymore. And you learn that from your parents and your family background. And, there is still some of that around with some of the young people coming up, but not as much as we would like. Otherwise, the world would be a different world. And we'll end it there. Again, everybody, thanks so much for listening. Nick Zimmerman, head coach of your Florida Gators women's soccer team. Please shoot him a follow on X. It is UFN Zimmerman on X, and then Nick Zimmerman 23 on Instagram. And I apologize to Nick and everybody listening if I fumbled and stumbled a couple of times. I am battling an allergic reaction and look like hell on earth, but that's par for the course here in America. So we'll move on from there. But Nick, thanks so much for coming on as always, and you're doing an amazing job at the University of Florida. So grateful you're there.
Thanks, Rob, for having me. And I got to tell you, buddy, you look terrific. The t-shirt, the eyes, the hat, you look terrific, buddy.
We're trying to be like Tommy Bahama. If anybody listening knows who the hell that is, but they may not, but whatever. We'll end there. Thanks so much, everybody.